Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Astrology and Beyond. Today, with your host Tatiana, also broadcasting for ANN, Archetypal News Network. And today, I will be bringing you the horoscopes for the eclipse happening tomorrow, April 8th. Now, like with every major astrological transit, life goes on. It's not like the end all and be all. Is what we do with with our life, with our thoughts, with our process, with our inner awareness that really creates the realities outside. And I know people are kind of like, oh, the eclipse are gonna be all these terrible things happening. Like, yes, it's true in ancient times would think like, oh, eclipses were times where people were very afraid and fear was, always in the air. and and did bring like bad omens. But I think we are now at a level of awareness and consciousness that we can understand that we are part of these celestial movements, and that we co-create with other bodies and other consciousnesses, which is part of this massive expansion of consciousness that we are having right now on the planet. And this eclipse is part of that evolutionary cycle. Now, if you remember or recall what was happening in 2005, these are the themes that you were evolving through for yourself. So if you look back at April of 2005 and April through October of 2005, what were you living through at that time? So it's very interesting. I'm going to share a little bit of a story, something that I was looking back in my journals. I looked at my journal and found October 8th of 2005. And then I was reading some of the things and emotions and things I was going through. And I literally found a quote, or no, I mean, a quote, something I wrote. I said, "This is the time in my life that I will stop people pleasing and do things for people to love me. And I want to be authentically me." And I was like, whoa, talk about Aries Libra axis of uh, of of eclipses. Now, what happens if we don't consciously do anything about this? What's interesting is that whether or not you're aware of astrology, themes still will appear in your life for you to evolve. That's what the eclipses are about. It's about these loopy evolutionary steps. Now we loop for every axis, we loop every 9 years and 18 years. So that's why we're looking back at 2005. What was happening then? And it's important to see these themes because this is how we're going to be working through this eclipse, and this is what I will be inviting you to look at. So even today, if you are watching this video, this could be very useful today. And if not, even in the subsequent days, you can always be present with what the eclipse is bringing to you, because the energies of the eclipse are present for 6 months. It's not like it's just tomorrow and that's what we're dealing with and everything ends tomorrow or happens tomorrow or begins tomorrow. No, it's just markers of time where you might have situations that will bring about the lessons or the things that you might want to evolve yourself through. So if you haven't watched the previous video on the whole eclipse and all that is happening in the energy, I would suggest go watch it. But if not, and if you just want to hear how this will affect you, the eclipse will affect you, we'll just look at the horoscopes by the rising sign. So I'm going to share my screen. Let me see. Just talk a little bit about the eclipse. So we will have all this collection of planets in Aries. We have a heavy also energy in Pisces, especially Mars and Saturn, that we will be also feeling that as part of our learning curve, and the expansion of Jupiter and Uranus conjunct. So you will have a house where you will have this packed Aries energy, which is the actual eclipse house, where you will have to look at those things that you're evolving yourself through and what is no longer happening for you. So the new expansive wave happens in the Aries area of your life. The Pisces house is where we will have the maturation process of the will, of the I do, I go get. Why do you do things? And this is going to be a very important question, because Mars conjunct Saturn means that we don't just go. We don't just go. This is going to ask us to be really in alignment with soul. What is good for the collective, for my evolution, for the world, for everybody else. That's the energy that we need to be carrying with wisdom, because our actions in the world, when they're carried through with wisdom, that's when we will see the actual flourishing of the expansion that we will be seeing in the Taurus house. If we're not carrying our actions with wisdom, but again, through the ego, through our own little desires of our lower self, that's where we will might have a lot of feelings that we can't move forward, that things that we want just don't happen, that something else happens, that we get frustrated. Remember, with these eclipse energies, there might be a lot of frustration. So our recommendation is, don't engage into things that are not worth wasting your energy. The energy of conflict, just forget it. After the eclipse, you can deal with certain things, but for now, just be more internal. I would say the the best thing I can tell you for this eclipse is just keep living your life, but have a little bit of time maybe to sit with yourself and reflect. Maybe again, journal journal a little bit to see what's come up with you. Maybe observe your reality, observe how your life is. What are your conflicts that you're having currently with people? Who triggers you? What triggers you? What are the things that you still want to do? And like, where are those sticky points? And this is a good time to reflect on that. Just say, wow, this is who I am right now, and I can forgive myself for this, and for whatever things you still feel that you're not um necessarily super like at peace with about yourself. And then let the energy do its thing. So again, do not engage in conflicts that are unnecessary. This is not the time for fighting, arguing, sending that letter, that email. Like, this is not the time to engage. And this, I will say it many times, not this time, low key. Low key, so you can really take advantage of the energies. Now, for the expansion house, what's going to happen is you might feel that there is an area of your life that will feel extremely like renewed. With there will be opportunities, huge opportunities for you, for enormous breakthroughs. And like, it's almost like, when you have not seen the path, you don't know where it is, and then suddenly this giant window opens and you're like, oh my God. And you just leap, you do that leap of faith through that window. And if you do that leap of faith through that window with responsibility, maturity, and with temperance, which is what Saturn and Mars are asking of you. So you just don't go like a crazy person, but you really take your time to integrate whether or not these new things that you're embarking on are are really coming from your soul, from a deep inner soul guidance. Because this is what this eclipse is about. It's about you existing in the world as the unique being you are, the authentic you. And this is why when I said I read that quote of my own journal, like, wow, this is the time of my life. I don't know if I completely achieved it, because like all layers of all onions, I feel it was a layer. I was an identity back then. And 18 years later, I'm a different person, and I have a new layer of the same lesson, let's say. What happens if we don't learn a lesson in a lifetime? Nothing happens. You know what? We're always given more opportunities. Things will come into our lives again and again and again and again and again for us to experience. And sometimes these portals are for us to go, do I still want to keep repeating these experiences or not? Do I need to wait another 18 years cycle of the same experiences? Or can I say, I'm going to put this to rest and I'm going to do it with consciousness? This is why astrology is useful, because now I'm going to give you where in your chart is the eclipse house, and what's the house where you need to have that temperance, maturity, and trust that there is a higher guidance, and which is the house that is going to expand. So let's look at that for each rising sign. So when I say the rising sign, if you don't know your rising sign, you can always look at your also your what do you call that? Your sun and your moon. If you have sun or moon in that sign, chances are you're gonna have some impact. But this is for the most part for the rising signs. Now, I wanted to just show a little bit of the energies that are in this eclipse. We have the Aries energy here. We talked again about the self, the going with courage for what you feel is your soul's direction, your path. Um, and this requires courage, this requires confidence, it requires for you to be super grounded in who you are, in order to to walk your own path. And this is why we will see with Chiron, as I talked before in the previous video, we might see the pain points of why we haven't gone the way that we're supposed to go. Now, the Pisces energy is the great beyond, the great mystery. And this is where we have Saturn and conjunct Mars. So again, if our actions are driven, because Mars is action, Mars is the will, if it's driven by a higher power, something that is beyond, that is more aligned with our souls, and that is really aligned with compassion. And this is not about a holy war, not at all. This is about how much how can our actions be creating more connection. How can we be more compassionate? How can we be more connected to all that is? And part of it is, like I said in previous video, is like the Tai Chi master, just mastering the energy, mastering being in the human body, because Saturn creates form. Saturn in Pisces wants to take this formless energy and just give it a shape, give it a form, channel it into something so that it can land here on earth and be used here on earth. It's almost like bringing the beyond here. And you might feel, if you're not really in alignment, you might feel kind of very frustrated. This could be frustrating times, like God abandoned me. There's nothing beyond, and that's where things can go sideways. But the recommendation in general is to be very internal and trust that you are here for a reason. Every person has something to offer to the world. We are all healers of the world. We are all here to help the earth raise its frequency. We are all here to create realities. And what we are going to create is what we decide to create, right? And this is why it's important to be aligned with our soul, because our soul knows what the best plan is. That's the Pisces energy. And then the Taurus energy is the house that will be expanding for you. The Taurus energy is all about the senses, it's about safety, it's about resources, it's about abundance, it's about the Garden of Eden kind of energy. Is like pleasure and like, oh my gosh. So if your Taurus, whatever your Taurus house is, this is where you're gonna feel this going you know so let's go into the horoscope so we can see how these three energies are going to be playing out for each one of you. So for Aries rising people, and you can also look for Aries sun, you can also look at that, even though the houses are really pretty pertinent to the rising sign. So if you're an Aries rising person, the eclipse happens in your first house, and the first house is the house of the self, the house of who I am, the house of my identity. So what do we want to look for? This eclipse might be asking you to be really present with your sense of self, if you have felt not worthy for any reason, if you have felt that your existence here has no real reason to be, if you've ever felt that you don't have confidence to just go out in the world and be yourself, this is a time where this is going to be shown really in a big way, so that you can step up to that level of confidence. With that level of confidence comes the expansion, which is the second house. And the expansion is really where you find value, where you get resources. So you're the house of your value, of what we acquire, of what nourishes us and sustains us, will expand. And this could be material expansion in a sense, because when we value ourselves, when we know who we are, then we attract truly what is best for us, and then we feel more grounded. So there might be a big expansion in that area of life. And then the area that is wanting us to be really mature, to know where we're putting our energy, is the 12th house. So it's the house of the beyond, it's the house of all the mysteries. So for you, Aries risings, I think a lot of like meditation and contemplation is important. It's important to have that spiritual discipline, because you might find that when you truly trust, when you trust that there is something bigger, really bigger, um, riding the boat, you know, driving the boat, then you will definitely be able to align with who you truly are, to show yourself in the world, your essence, your person, your beingness. Just you being present on the planet is what makes the whole difference. So it's not anything you need to necessarily do. Necessarily, it's not about doing anything, it's about being who you are. And for you, it's going to be really important, because this eclipse might bring a new sense of self for you that is much more connected and much more grounded in self-love. So we'll see for you, Aries rising people. Now for Taurus rising people, this eclipse will be happening for you in the 12th house. So we just talked about the 12th house, all the mysteries. So the sense, this new beginnings for you, or this new sense of things will happen in the 12th house. You might feel that you're entering like almost like a new understanding of the universe, or peeling beyond layers that you had never really known you even had. There might be gifts that you have that you didn't even know you had. You might be reconnecting to a part of yourself that is bigger than just your physical body, or your regular, I am this person, I do this, I do that. You might really start connecting to something so bigger, so grander. And like I say, like anything 12th house means that things from your collective, from the collective consciousness, these themes might be impacting or affecting you. You might become even more sensitive too. You might feel like something is really calling you to look beyond, to see that there is more to life than, your mundane life. And you might want to delve deeper into spiritual pursuits of sorts. So again, by not feeling that there is a threat in that, because what happens when we, let's say, are a very conventional person, and then suddenly we start becoming more woo woo or more connected to other things, and suddenly people are starting to go, well, you're kind of weird, and then you might lose some friends, or which is interesting, because for Taurus rising people, the your Pisces house would be the 11th house, where where precisely we might be having difficulties connecting to the groups of people we used to connect before. We might feel that we don't fit in anymore. And now the idea is that the new things that are coming into our awareness, and the way we're going to be working with groups of people, uh, that's where the maturity aspect comes from. Maybe the new people coming into your life or what you really, the relationships you're cultivating, uh that could be literally like groups of people or collectives of people. These kind of relationships that are nurtured at this time, with Saturn moving through your 11th house, will be probably more long lasting, and the effect of your actions, the actions that you're going to do for the collective. And when I say the collective, it could be an organization, it could be again a community or a group of people. Whatever you're bringing to this area of your life, you might even notice that more spiritual people are coming into your life, that you're having maybe a change of friends, that you're not vibrating the same with certain people than with other people. And this is where you also need to be discerning of who is coming into your life, and what projects are you going to be involved with, and what is worth your time and effort um, in these areas. And the what will be expanding for you, like the Taurus and Jupiter conjunction, is the first house, which we already saw with the Aries. The first house is about the self. So your sense of self might be so renewed, you might feel so confident in who you are, that this new sense of self will probably give you enormous confidence. You might feel like you're like at the top of the world. You might feel that this new identity that you're like breathing, and it's this breaking out of a cocoon is almost like getting huge wings, huge butterfly wings. And the sense of self that you'll have might feel really, really expansive. And again, that might not gel with everybody you used to know, but it will give you a new purpose almost, which is your being could be also perceived as unconventional or quirky, especially when Uranus is transiting the first house. We might really be completely shifting identity, and be perceived as like completely unconventional, or having unconventional ideas, or bringing the sheer beingness of who you are might be uh really a big metamorphosis, because with Uranus you'll have a big breakthroughs around who you truly are. So the question for you, Taurus rising, says, do you know really who you are? And I'm not talking about what you do in life or your name, is who are you? Because this is where the eclipse is going to be revealing a ton of stuff. So again, for Taurus people, Taurus rising people, in being internal, being more within yourself, within your being. Um, and also if you have Taurus moon or sun, this might apply to you to a certain degree, but not exactly through the houses. Now, Gemini rising people, the eclipse happens in your 11th house. So for you, the sense of renewal, the sense of this new version of you that is courageous, that is brave, that takes new action, maybe new things will happen in this area of life, is the area of associations, friends, groups of people, community. That's the 11th house. So for you, you might be maybe starting or beginning a journey with new people in your life. That could be something that could be coming into your existence. This is where you also would have to assess if the people around you are the causes you are dedicated to, uh, if the causes you're dedicated to are the right ones. And you might be feeling more inclined to be with groups of people, to do things for other and with others, like in connection with others, and do maybe pioneer, have like a pioneer spirit around it. Because Aries is my own path, but in the 11th house, it cannot just be me by myself. The 11th house really is about the people that we do things with, that carry the energy of collective endeavors. So you might be feeling that maybe you are joining new collectives or having new ideas for creating better, maybe social environments where you can thrive and be yourself. Um, and the Pisces house is the 10th house. So you will be feeling where you are going to probably have the the most like, how can we put this? The most difficulty, or the need for maturity and knowing how you're carrying your action in the world is the 10th house. This is where the you have Saturn transiting, and you might be even feeling a little bit overwhelmed with work and responsibilities. And again, you might be feeling that you have the weight on your shoulder. And with Mars, that there's so much to do, so much to accomplish, and but again, like with all things Pisces, if you allow everything to fall into place, you should be fine, because this is not about you controlling things, it's about you guiding a process that comes from above and taking the responsibility. When Saturn's transiting the 10th house, and we might be feeling flooded with intensity of work and responsibility. Now I'm gonna do a little apartheid here about the house systems, because for the horoscopes I use the whole sign houses, but in general I would do readings with tropical placidus, and for those who have no clue what that is, don't worry about it. It's just a different system, so sometimes the houses are not exactly the same. So if you find yourself like, oh, this is really not applying to me, chances are, and that by holes by the other house systems, you might have some planets, or your that don't, like, the eclipse might not exactly fall in these houses that I'm saying. But again, like everything, it's always an adjustment. And if you're watching this and this really speaks to you, and then that's great. But I'm just saying that this could be a little bit, I would say, listen to the Taurus house as well, the Taurus rising. If you are an Aries, listen to the Taurus rising. If you are a Taurus, listen to the Gemini rising. If you're a Gemini, listen to the Cancer rising, because chances are there's some overlaps here. So I'm just saying. Okay, back to where we were. Now, the house that will be expanding for you, it's the 12th house. So what you might find, Gemini rising people, is that you might have suddenly a big connection to also something bigger. You might have opportunities, big opportunities to dig deep into the realms of the beyond. You might have big dreams as well. Sometimes in the 12th house, we open up everything that was hidden before. The 12th house is the hidden houses, is so blocked from our conscious mind. And when we have Uranus and Jupiter there might be huge realizations, and maybe again deep connections with the beyond. Maybe even like the Taurus rising people, anything that anybody with things in the 12th house, there's going to be some kind of gifts activated, or the capacity to connect to something bigger, grander, greater. So for Aries rising, Taurus rising, and Gemini rising people, I say meditation is of the essence for you, because the 12th house requires that retreat, requires silence, requires being in a mode of contemplation, so you can connect more to to be beyond the veil. Okay, Cancer rising people, my dear Cancers, the eclipse is happening in your 10th house. So wow, the new beginnings, the new expansion, the new beginnings where you are going to be wanting to go your way. It's in the arena of what you do for in your career, your vocation, what you truly are here to do, what you're seen for, and what you are leaving as a legacy in this lifetime, what you do out in the public. That's the 10th house. So what you do in the public might have a new cycle right now. Maybe you're wrapping up some old jobs or old way of what you used to think that was your contribution to the world. With the eclipse here, there's a big ask around moving moving forward, maybe even in a new direction, or at least in a direction that's really aligned. If it's not a change of jobs or vocation or career, it's a huge at least redirection or reorientation of what you already do. Or there's a new level of it that requires you to be more independent, more pioneering, and more yourself. And whatever you do in the world, just do it. This is the house of that where we do things. So I would say it's not only just about being who you are, is about doing what you came here to do. This with the 10th house, you might even be perceived also uh, as having like being seen for who you truly are, being seen, because in the 10th house, that's where we're seen. The public sees us for who you truly are. Now there the Pisces house, your Pisces house is the ninth house, so where you might be having um a little bit of that maturation process is in your beliefs. What do you believe? What the ninth house is, of course, about traveling internationally, which means that we are connected to other cultures and other beliefs. It's also the house of religions. It's the house of meaning. The ninth house is the house where we find meaning in general. So for you, the 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 Saturn has been transiting this ninth house, which means you might be reinvesting yourself into meaning. What is meaningful to you? What do you believe? What are your beliefs? This is what we talk about the ninth house as religion or studies or higher education, because it's all these things outside of ourselves that are ideas and ideals. And your ideals might be needing a little bit of revisiting. You might be feeling that the ideals that you used to have are no longer exactly aligned with your being, and again you're maybe asked to commit to your truth. With Saturn, the commitment is important. So committing to your own truth is going to be important. Committing to what gives meaning to you. And when you commit to what really gives meaning to you, then you will be able to do something in the world that is meaningful. And therefore, that's how the eclipse can help you move forward. You have to be brave in order to do that, but you also have to commit to what is true for you, your own truth. Now, the expansion house, it's the 11th house. So what happens? What expands for you? It's the connections, the networks with people, the groups of people, and uh, everything having to do with whatever you do in society. You might even find that there's new groups of new friends, new people that you meet, new groups, new collections, new collectives that are very exciting and different, because Uranus being in the 11th house is going to bring a lot of new exciting possibilities regarding groups of people and associations. So you see, when we're hovering from the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th house with this eclipse, it makes sense. If you find meaning in what you're doing and you put it out in the world, you will attract the people that are resonating with you, and you might find yourself having a whole new circles of people that you are affecting in your life. So this is kind of a little bit what the Cancers could be expecting in their lives. um Now, let's do Leo. For Leo rising people, woo, Leo risings, you're having the eclipse in your ninth house. So it's interesting because the again, this is where we might wanna take that leap of faith and maybe move somewhere or go to another country, or take on a big piece of study, like studying something new and completely different, getting involved in some kind of, maybe, yeah, you could, this is the time where you might want to go for that degree that you never went for, that is going to give you a very different perspective on life, because the eclipse is happening in your ninth house. This is similar to what we would say about the Cancers are having to commit to something. Well, in Leo, it's about initiating something that is exciting, that is foreign, that is different, and that might take you somewhere else, that might take you in a different, to even a different location on the planet, where you will be nourished with very many different possibilities. And or you might study something or connect to um also revamp your sense, your beliefs. What you believe about yourself might be also changing, evolving. You might be leaving behind old beliefs to jump into new ways of creating meaning for yourself as well. Now the Pisces house is the eighth house, and that's where you're gonna have the Saturn Mars conjunction. So, oof, the eighth house is kind of one of those. It's like the 12th house. It requires an effort to connect to yourself and to maybe look at possible traumas or things that have created difficulty for you to connect deeply to others, or even to share with others. It might be a time where you might be feeling that that connecting to others at a very deep level is challenging, and you really want it. And if you really take, for example, and this is where I go, like, for example, if you're in a relationship, and a committed, very deep relationship, and you feel like it's difficult to connect, this is a time where you can really take it seriously to maybe look into tantric, into tantra, into practices that are spiritual, but that are also possibly along the taboo lines, like the eighth house is where we find all the taboo, all the things that, all the shadows. So there's many possibilities with this eighth house for you, Leo risings, is that if you really go back into seeing why you probably have not deeply connected to others or another person, or um or if you have any traumas in that you've had before in your life, this is a time to look within and find where those blockages, where the blockage has been, and resignify it. Mm, Knowing that the expansion house for you will be the 10th house. So the expansion house will be for you uh what you do in the world. So you might be finding that you get either a new job, or not certainly a new job, but maybe you finally have this great breakthrough around something you always wanted to do. Maybe it could be like uh maybe you're gonna publish something and put it out in the world, and this is going to change the way you do things. It could change your career. Even there could be some instability in what you're doing in your life. You might have felt that in the previous years, while Uranus transits your 10th house, that there's been possibly many changes of focus of what you do in the world. But all in all, I think the spectrum here of your of this eclipse is to dive deep into where you have had blockages, like deep-seated blockages or traumas, and really find what it is that gives you meaning, so that what you do out in the world again expands also massively. You might have immense opportunities of of doing things that are very pioneering and new and different, that you will be seen for, maybe even leave some kind of legacy. Again, with the 10th house, there's what we leave. This is a house of doing, it's not a house of being, feeling, remoting. It's a house of doing. So what will expand is you might get a lot of great opportunities regarding your career. Okay, Virgo rising people. Like everything eighth house, the eclipse is happening in the eighth house. So like I said, for the Leos, the eighth house is the house of where we have the shadows, where we might have some trauma, where we might have to dig into the occult, into the things that are uncomfortable. It's the house of the merger or the connection. This is the house where we see death and rebirth. So the eclipse happening here, you might find that maybe new connections or a new renewed desire to be delving into the themes of the occult. That could be something that happens, that you have this renewed sense of wanting to connect deeper to someone or with someone. This is where we might get this like mergers. Maybe somebody comes into your life and you decide to explore maybe themes around sexuality, like I said, tantra, bringing that energy of Mars Saturn into the depths of who you are. Like it's like a deep exploration. I'm having this deep phase, but this is how I feel about the eighth house. It's like an opportunity to dive really deeply and maybe deeply with another. Um, and this could be very exciting because the eclipse is happening in this area where you might find there has been also possibly traumas. And when you look at this and they no longer rule your life, this will be expanding your ninth house. So this is where you might find opportunities, giant opportunities to travel, to maybe something, uh, again, getting into new studies. This is where you get like the mentors, the right mentors for the right thing, in the expansion. Is like you might find that you find that like the best teacher for something you've always wanted to do comes through, appears in your life, and then you're able to, uh I don't know, take on some new studies. Or this is also where where you could be publishing that work that you've been working on. And because this ninth house is an house of the house also of publishing, this is also where you could decide to go also on a big trip, and there's the funds, there's the possibility, there's suddenly an option, it appears, and then poof, or somebody appears in your life that takes you, um takes you away somewhere, and opens up a lot of opportunities abroad. Maybe that could be an option for this. And the Pisces house is the seventh house, so again, it's the house of relationships. So for you, this eclipse might bring about a lot of relationship issue thingies. um so the you might have felt that maybe through this time, when Saturn transits your seventh house, you might have felt like maybe that your relationships are not quite connecting as well, or that you might have not been in relationship. And the maturation process is to be in relationships that are more committed, because well, Saturn through the seventh house can signify a little bit of loneliness with respect to connections, and maybe the difficulty to really build something. But it also means that when we are committed to something or someone, this is the time where we can do really long lasting bonds. They might not be super woohoo, but with this eclipse, I'm feeling for you, Virgo rising people, that you might be going to the next level with relationships if you're ready to dive deeper into maybe those more traumatic areas. And you might be able to possibly meet people that are going to help you see yourself deeper, so you can connect to who you are and do this in partnership. So this might be something that happens for you. And if you're not necessarily in relationship with a person or someone, well, this is a time where you can also, uh, again, dive deeper into your own shadows, do work around that, and maybe you will be able to travel somewhere and expand your horizons, because with the ninth house is all about expanding horizons. So We'll see how that goes for Virgo rising people. Now, Libras, our Libra risings, the eclipse happens in your seventh house. So this is where, again, seventh house is the house of contracts, agreements, relationships. This is where we have these one-on-ones. And the eclipse happening there, it's kind of complex because the Libra house is all about this, and having Aries there is like, it's like this little tug of war where we need to be who we are, assert ourselves in relationship as this is me and that is you. And if we're going to be together, this has to be not by me pleasing you or, but this is really me being me within the relationship. So the Aries function here is like, you really gotta, um, if you're going to be in partnership with somebody, make sure it's not a codependent thing. And chances are that when we have the eclipses here, there might be new partnerships forming as old partnerships are dissolving. This is where we also get these new partnerships happening. Now, the Pisces house is the sixth house. So this is the house that we will be having maybe a lot of responsibilities and things to do. And you might feel like there's a lot of chores in your life right now, that there's, the kids to take to school, the this to do, the that to do, like this heaviness around the everyday life things. You might be having some health issues and concerns, but if you are taking care of yourselves, and like diligently, this is why Saturn, when it moves through the sixth house, it wants us to take a good look of how we're taking care of our bodies and ourselves, and this is why health issues might appear. And with Mars there, this is not the time maybe to have surgeries or things like that. Not a good idea. We don't want to be going. This is why, like, if you're planning a surgery or something, this is really not the good time to do this, uh, at all. With Mars and Saturn there, and I would not plan this. This is maybe a time to look at alternatives for healing, or healing alternatives. This is also a time for you to have maybe a daily practice of some kind of spiritual connection, any daily practice, because this is the sixth house, right? The house of routines. Now, what's expanding for you is the eighth house, the house of the connection, of, again, the sexuality, shared resources. So like the Virgo rising people, Libra rising people, you might be having a lot of these themes around relationships. For it's going to be relationship heavy, and but what will expand maybe is a very deep sense of connection with someone, a very deep desire to go deeper, merge more, bond more, and maybe this is with a new person, who knows, right? And take care of your health and make sure you are yeah, you are paying attention to your health. Scorpio rising people, the eclipse happens into your sixth house. So again, sixth house, where we have the daily routines. This is the house of Virgo. Is the daily routines, is what we do every day. It's our job, it's our health, it's also our pets. The eclipse happens here, so you might be feeling that there's a renewed energy with regards to your health, your vitality. You might feel that with the eclipse, whatever you had done before in the past for your health might be improving. There might be breakthroughs around your health and how you're going to take care of yourself. It could also be that there's new routines or new things that you're going to be doing that you need to get really organized with, because things are going to be expanding in certain areas. So we want to make sure that that you are really organized, and that whatever you're doing, you're doing it methodically. This is the house of Virgo, so it's a daily task. So the eclipse happening here, make sure also that you are taking care of your health, and you might have that leap in whatever you've been battling maybe for years, for the past cycle, or something that was not really great for your health. This is where you might see also a new path or a new pathway. um or you might even get a new pet. That again, it depends. Each person's different, and there's the themes can play out in so many ways. I'm just giving general themes. Maybe this is the arrival of a new little creature in your house that you're going to be taking care of. Um, the Pisces house, it's the sixth house. So this is where you might be feeling a little bit more of a blockage, maybe in your creative expression. But if you use maybe, for example, I find that Saturn transiting to the through the fifth house, usually people that decide to learn like a skill, like an artistic skill, like something that requires a lot of persistence and kind of detail and like playing the piano, learning how to do this, like learning a technique of sorts, then you can harness a lot of power to then be very expressive. It's like if you have good technique in something, then you can be very, then your sense of self-expression can come through. So with the Pisces, the Mars Saturn here, this is probably a good time to maybe take on some kind of artistic practice that requires a lot of concentration and focus, and something that um I'm thinking about mandalas because I love making mandalas, which are these like, you just is very structured and it's like a meditation, but that can bring about a lot of connection to yourself, and it's very expressive and beautiful. I don't know why I'm talking about mandalas, but this is kind of how I feel with this energy of the Saturn Mars in Pisces in the fifth house, where we might also feel that there is a yeah, like a creative blockage sometimes, but what he wants of us is that to make sure that what we're creating, we are creating it from that our creations are based on like not feeling that we're not good enough, but that we have something to show for because we are taking the time to learn something well, to commit to something. This is why maybe like this is a time that like maybe you might feel that it's not much fun, but the fun comes in the, let's say, effort of doing something, of sitting and completing it and creating something, even if you have to use a template. This is also the house of children. So chances are that um sometimes there might be difficulties with the creativity, with fun play, maybe with your children, that you might have been feeling that there's like maybe responsibilities around that too. But like everything, if you have if you take that's funny because it's like, how can we enjoy something that is so blocked, right? And I feel like when you enjoy technique, that's when we get very, like, when creativity expands in a very different way. Um, so yeah, again, like I say, you might want to sign up for some kind of creative thing you've never done before that requires you to harness a creative skill, uh, paint by numbers, kind of thing. Um, Now the house that will be expanding for you, Scorpio risings, is the seventh house. So I think that this is where we might have also breakthroughs in our relationships. It is possible that whatever happens in your relationships, if you are with somebody, this might be like taking you to the next level of your relationship. Sometimes it happens with Uranus that there might be changes. So if you're going through a breakup, chances are that it's because something much better is coming your way and it's going to expand that sense, that house. Um, this is also a the good time to maybe um I would say, well, with the Taurus energy, there is going to be like contracts of all kinds might be resolved. This is where the opportunities to have, I wouldn't say sign contracts right now with Mercury retrograde into eclipse, but I say that the once the eclipse passes and Mercury passes its retrograde, there's gonna be a possibility of signing new contracts with people you're gonna either work with, or again, it could be marriage. It could be, this is where you get married and have this new contract. Um, so I would say, yeah, that your relationship house is in for some goodies. So let's see what happens there. Oh my gosh, this is getting long, but we're on to the last four. So Sagittarius. For Sagittarius rising people, the eclipse is happening in your fifth house. So again, the house of creativity. So you might be finding that there is an expansion of sorts, or a new direction in your sense of self-expression or creativity. And because there's something new coming, it might be also, uh, you know, like I said before, children could come into the mix, like pregnancies sometimes, romance. You might find yourself in like a desire to maybe meet new people, have fun, just like the plain old fun. It's just redefining the word fun. I would say, like, there's something about you being so creatively and uniquely you, because this is Aries, this is about you, that whatever you create, uh it's going to have like this like new cycle of what is your creativity all about, and how can you have fun with life, how can you just enjoy life. So there's going to be like an opening or an expansion in this area where you're probably going to have a lot of creative ideas and a lot of fun. Really, like I think, like, whenever anything fifth house is full of joy, is it's a joyful house. So if we're not having fun in life, then what's life for, right? And the Pisces house, it's going to be the fourth house. So in your fourth house, this is where you might feel that there is a little bit of responsibilities in your with respect to your home and family. This is why I feel like Sagittarius rising people, if for example you've been wanting to get pregnant and stuff, this could be the time when that happens. And then there is this responsibility, right? You bring a baby to the world, you have something new coming into your life. There's You could also feel that there's lots of responsibilities in the home, right? Like you might be needing to take care of things in the house or where you live. This is not a great time to be moving with Saturn there, but this is a time maybe where you're building a new home. And if you put that effort there, this will be a long-lasting home. This is also the time where, if what you're building, you're really doing it from um yeah, like the revisiting maybe of your own family. This is where family and our lineage, and you might be, for example, having to take care of of all your mother or your father, or like there's some kind of heaviness in the home area. But by taking this responsibility, doing it from your heart, doing it from your most compassionate place, you might be actually creating very long lasting um, um, breakthroughs with respect to your sense of being somewhere, of being rooted. Is the roots. The fourth house is the roots. That's where you're rooted. So that's where you're gonna, if you're well rooted, and this has to do with, if you're well rooted, then you can expand more in the Taurus house, right? So what happens, the expansion house is the sixth house for you Sagittarius people. So your daily life, your daily routines, your daily work, it's kind of a little bit interesting, because that's the Virgo house. So it's not like the most exciting house, because you might feel that there's a lot to do. But the things that you're going to be doing are going to have so much meaning, because Jupiter also brings meaning. So doing what you're doing and what you're doing at home, it will give you much more joy, more meaning, more purpose to wake up every day to go and do what you do, because you're going to feel creative and inspired. So the doing every day of what you need to do is for something. And again, I'm feeling and sensing that this area of the of the chart, the Sagittarius people, Capricorn people who have like uh fifth house and fourth house energies present, This is a time where, again, babies could be coming your way, and this is we're building families, we're building foundations. So that's you for Sagittarius. Now, for Capricorn risings, this is eclipse is happening in your fourth house. And again, like all things fourth house, it might be that you're either finding a new home, you're looking for a new home, you're reconnecting from a new sense of finding a different place to be or exist or live at a different foundation. It might be a different way of relating to your own family. That's also a possibility. It might be that a baby might be coming too, because the expansion house is the fifth house. So it might literally expand your belly if you're a couple and you're a woman trying to get pregnant. This is might be the time where that happens. So and if you're not wanting that, well, then just use a condom or just don't do it. So again, the eclipse happens in this area, so you might be finding a new home and finding a new sense of what belonging means to a family, a clan, or a root. And also, like all things Chiron, looking at where there have been pain points so you can heal that. Now, the Pisces house is your uh the maybe I said it. Wait, I have a confusion. I have a temporary confusion. Oh no. Yeah, the Pisces house, it's the third house. So, what's you might be needing to, what I think about it when Saturn transits the third house, in my experience, is like it's like a great time to maybe study something or get a skill for something. You might be wanting to like what your words are about, your thoughts, what you because the third house is about communication, it's about thinking, if it's about the mind. So that might be having a little bit of a revisiting. You might find that you have a lot of focus for something, because with Mars and Saturn, the capacity to go for something that you can focus on. I mean, with Mercury retrograde right now, I wouldn't say right now start something, but this might give you an opportunity maybe to again study something, or even change something around the way you relate. It might be um what am I was gonna say? Oh, I'm getting tired. So let me regather my thoughts. Um the yeah, so the expansion house for you, it's the fifth house. So the eclipse happens on the fourth house, and your expansion house is the fifth house. So what is going to be happening is that you have a big burst of opportunity, of creativity. So this is where opportunities come out of the blue. This is where babies come out of the blue, and this is where creativity comes out of the blue as well. You might be engaged in like a new creative pursuit that just comes out of the blue. You feel super self-expressed, you feel happy, you feel joyful. Maybe kids come into your life. Big time to expand the joy and the fun. So this is kind of like a great thing for you, Capricorn risings. And like I said, I'm gonna go back to the third house where you have your Pisces house, where there needs to be like there's like a blockage or concentration in the maybe in your communications, in your everyday, like commuting to places might not be like the easiest time to do that. Maybe this is a time, again, I think with Saturn, the third house, it's a good time to study something, to take a course, to focus your efforts and energies into something that will um expand your mind eventually. So it's like yeah, like being focused. I find that with the third house, our communications, that's when Saturn was transiting my third house, that's when I dove super deeply into astrological studies. That's when I studied nonviolent communication. It's all about how to communicate better and from our hearts, and our efforts that we put into how we communicate will dictate if we are like sharp tongued, if we are, the kind of, we're not really, we don't know how to properly create networks or connections. This is where you can learn something like how to do like YouTube or how to create networks. I feel like Saturn in the third house really gives us an opportunity to expand, not to expand, but to discipline our minds and gather skills when it comes to communication. And Saturn wants us to gather skills and to be masterful at something. So this is a time where that could be very active for you, Capricorn rising people. Good time for reevaluating your communication skills. Aquarius, Aquarius rising people. The eclipse happens in the third house, so this is the house of communications, right? So this house where we communicate, where we use our mind, is the house of is the Gemini house, is the house where we build connections and networks with people, is the house um of everything having to do with communication. So the eclipse here might might bring for you new opportunities of communication. Again, with people, new opportunities to launch yourself into something. Again, it could be studies of certain like courses that you've been wanting to do, and it could be also teaching. You know, like in the third house, we also see teaching. We also see like teaching, like this is not like university teaching, but maybe like if you're a teacher already, this is a time where you might be changing schools, for instance, and teaching in another place, or finding new students, or different ways to connect to people. If you're in sales, this is a great time to maybe make a big leap into different ways of doing the ways like doing that, you know. Like I feel like the third house is all about sales, it's about communication, about marketing, it's about you know, it's the big marketplace, and it's the big mind, it's the mind connection. So the third house here, the eclipse happening here, there might be a realization of that your mind is much more powerful than you even believe it to be or think it to be, and that you can access new things and new ways of thinking, because with Aries there might be a desire to enter into something new and different when it comes to your mind. And again, it could be new ways of networking, um, new possibilities around that. The Pisces house for you is the second house, which which is where we might be finding that maybe money has been kind of difficult, maybe getting resources have been not as easy. It might have been like a tough time for you, where you're like maybe finding that um that it's kind of that you're being asked to really step up if you want to get your resources, you know. And so with Mars Saturn here again, it's like if you are working for the right thing, you know, if you've got the eye on on on, and I think like I think with this is particular because the eclipse happening in your third house might bring a new way of creating networks and possibilities that might help you um gain, again, if you're really diligent at working for your resources. This is what happens with Saturn. We are not just given things, we have to work for it. um I feel that these new ventures that you might find, or avenues of connections, networks, might be a good platform for you to start gaining, like working on how to get your resources. So if you have felt like maybe money has been a little bit tight, while Saturn moves through your second house, it's asking you to really see how you value yourself. Usually, when Saturn transits the second house, it's almost asking you, like, how do you value yourself, and what are you going to do to generate that value? Because no one's going to do it for you, and you will have opportunities in the third house with the eclipse, with the expansion of your mind, maybe some new skills, and and you will have the expansion in the fourth house. So for you, what's going to be interesting is that the this might be maybe a good time, believe it or not, maybe to where you're going to move to a new home. Maybe you're finding a new home that is much more suitable for you, that is a much better place. Maybe there might be might be a good time to maybe connect to your family as well. You might have relatives that suddenly just show up in your in your life too, that you haven't maybe seen in a while, connected with, um and you can be maybe reconnecting with your family. And or also, it's like everything, fourth house, expanding your family. This is also where there's also a possibility, if you're pregnant, this is maybe where the baby is born, and then your family expands, because this is where the expansion happens. It's in your home. So you might be finding a new home. And again, if you are very diligent and at how you're getting your resources, at how you're working for your money, and at how um you are really focusing on that, then that's going to be something that will last long. What I mean, this is not the time to gamble, or the time to think that by investing in something you're gonna get rich. No, this is a time where we work for what we want to create, and also by valuing your skills. And if you need to get new skills for that, then this is maybe a time to do so. Okay. And last but not least, Pisces. Pisces rising, people. So, Pisces rising, you will be having the eclipse in the second house. So, like second house things, the themes are the values, resources, and how you get your safety and security for survival. This is the Taurus house, and it's the house of abundance, of course. So, the eclipse happening here, there might be big breakthroughs in how you get your resources. Maybe there's a new direction, a new way that you're finding that you're going to get your resources from. Maybe there's also a renewed sense of value. So if you're feeling that something's connected to how you value yourself and your skills, you might be having maybe these realizations, and the eclipse will give you like a new pathway in how you can get your resources. And that getting resources is not only just, it's not our job. Maybe there's many different ways of doing that, and you might get new ideas and maybe find new beginnings in that sense. um so the Pisces house obviously is your first house, because that's your rising. So this is where you're gonna have maybe this is kind of tricky again, because having Saturn transit in the first house might feel like difficult. You might be very hard on yourself sometimes with that Saturn and Mars. You might be just like wanting to hit the gym really hard, like I gotta get buff, I gotta do it. Like you might be really hard on yourself. And this is a time to, yes, it's a time to take to 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 look at who you are, like who are you. Again, the first house is always who are you. And and if you have been feeling maybe that who you are, it's not beautiful, it's not graceful, it's not great, it's not this, it's not that, well, what the energy of the Mars Saturn is asking you to do is not necessarily just to hit the gym, you know, to get buff and beautiful, but maybe that is an option. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's more like to know that if you do not fall into believing that you're not good enough, but you actually work. This is, the Pisces house is about also is along the axis of self and value. So if you really truly value yourself, and know that your contribution to the world, your beingness, is also going to provide you with, again, like your resources. Like we said, the eclipse is happening in the second house, but it is really important to um to trust that who you are is the flow of life. Because when you're a Pisces rising, there's the experience of your life is about trusting the flow. And if you try to control the flow too much, you won't truly find who you are, because who you are is the flow of life itself. You might not even know who you're. This is a time where you might be finding more of that identity, because, and again, when I say hit the gym, be that's kind of a very simplistic way of putting it, but I'm more interested in, like, if you are the higher octaves of of these transits is almost like, I'm getting the image of this like mystic that has found a, a very grounded practice, and that by trusting that there's something beyond that is guiding your sense of self, you will know when and where to put the right boundaries, what to follow and not to follow, and not fall into the despair that could arise with feeling that this body is very limiting. I don't know if that makes sense, but the limitation, the Saturn limitation, it feels like you are a limited being inside this body. And again, you might feel like either you're not good enough, or that this is not what you are, but you don't know what to do because you feel compressed in this body, especially because it's Saturn, not just in the first house, it's Saturn in Pisces. So it's like it might feel that you're not like you would really want to expand into something bigger. What is cool is that the expansion house, which will be the Taurus house, um uh is the um it's the third house. I feel that with the third house expanding, there might be this is a time where you can also begin to speak a lot and communicate, because when we expand it in this third house, there's the capacity to start like really connecting, communicating. Again, you might want to take on new skills of some sort. There might be opportunities for you to um, dive into um, yeah, to dive into certain types of studies as well. Or you might want to teach and share, also learn like new things. What else with the third house? The mind expanding. This is the expansion of the mind as well. So is where the lower mind expands into higher mind. That could also be a possibility, because Uranus there will bring lots of different possibilities for you there. Um, all right. I think that is all for the horoscopes. I gotta admit that I am mentally very exhausted. So if some of it is not as sharp as it usually is when I'm, you know, uh, I am really struggling with the with now putting all my words together. So thank you for your patience, and whatever resonated with you, um, take it. Again, during the eclipse, I would recommend more of an introspection. Even just take some time, maybe an hour. It doesn't have to be the whole day and like stop your life because there's an eclipse. Obviously, if you're in the path of the eclipse, go watch it. Awesome. And if you're not, like, it's fine. But yeah, know that all is well. All is always well. And this is me just being the channel for whatever message is coming through right now. All is well. All is always well. You're always evolving. You're always moving forward. There's nothing that you really need to do or accomplish, because just your beingness is enough. And that is part of this eclipse, is knowing that whatever has been um, keeping you from moving forward as the divine being you are, it's no longer necessarily going to be the case if you're able to look at what this is, and know that we always have opportunities to keep evolving. And what we create in this world, whatever we create in this world, is what we are and who we are. And who we are sometimes is not what we believe we are, it's what we know deep inside we're connected to, which is much bigger, much grander, and much greater. And when we truly fall into this bigger, greater, grander place, this is when we can enact the will of the divine on this planet, and create something much more harmonious, much more beautiful. This is how we will be creating a new earth, or not, depending on how we choose to exist. Thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Happy eclipse. Write me in the comments. Please feel free to like, share, subscribe. And I would love to hear how you move through this eclipse.